You woke up, checked your glowing screen, and waited for motivation to strike. We worship self-care and good vibes, but optimizing your life around comfort is a trap. When you rely on cheap dopamine hits to get through the afternoon, you train your brain to quit at the slightest hint of friction. That guarantees a lifetime of average results. History offers a very different blueprint. The individuals who bent the world to their will didn't do it from a place of comfort. They forged their minds through extreme, deliberate friction, seeking out the exact pain we spend our lives avoiding. History's highest achievers operated without a safety net. For them, failure carried a weight that modern comfort has allowed us to forget. To cure our modern lethargy, we have to look in a brutal mirror. By decoding the psychological warfare that the most relentless minds in history waged against themselves, we can learn how to slaughter our own daily excuses. You likely struggle to sit in a room for 10 minutes without reaching for a distraction. Nikola Tesla spent decades in absolute isolation, pulling the future of human engineering out of thin air. That level of world-bending output requires a willingness to separate yourself from average people. You have to ruthlessly sever 3 distinct tethers: time-wasting apps, toxic social circles, and the bad habits that drain your focus. We lose our tempers over traffic jams and minor inconveniences. Meanwhile, the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius faced devastating plagues, endless wars, and deep personal betrayals while maintaining absolute, unshakable calm. Look at this timeline of how a Stoic processes chaos. Instead of an immediate reaction spike, they insert a rigid 3-second buffer. By always saying less than necessary and delaying their response, they neutralize the threat and output a perfectly flat, controlled reaction. The legendary samurai Miyamoto Musashi called this deliberate strain. He believed that surviving lethal duels required practicing in total isolation and treating every mundane daily task like a battle you cannot afford to lose. This psychological armor preserves the focus needed to endure that strain, shielding the mind from the trivial noise that breaks average people. Think about how easy it is to quit when your alarm rings early. Then picture Kobe Bryant. He tore his Achilles tendon, stepped back onto the court, sank 2 free throws, and walked off under his own power. Tim Grover, who trained Bryant, called this psychological state cleaning. It is the absolute obsession to dominate your field by executing brutal and repetitive training at 4 a.m., putting in the work while your competition is comfortably asleep. Modern advice tells us to retreat when we feel anxious. But Mike Tyson would regularly cry in the locker room from sheer terror before walking out into the arena to become the most feared knockout artist in boxing history. Greatness requires stripping away the polite public face we wear. You have to locate your deepest insecurities and fears and directly convert that crippling anxiety into raw, unstoppable forward aggression. We constantly blame our lack of progress on bad circumstances. Niki Lauda stripped away all emotion, focused entirely on the next logical step, and strapped his bleeding head back into a Formula One car just 40 days after burning alive. True champions do not wait for the perfect mood, the absence of fear, or a painless body. They require those exact obstacles to callous their minds and generate an unstoppable momentum. Most professionals are perfectly satisfied with being just good enough at their jobs. Michael Jordan possessed a dark, unforgiving psychology, literally fabricating enemies in his own head just to unleash total, terrifying dominance on the court. He utilized a concept known as the investment in loss. Behind closed doors, he pushed himself and his teammates to the absolute brink of failure. He suffered in private so that a public victory became a mathematical certainty. Today, people spend their lives paralyzed by the fear of starting a local business. Alexander the Great led his armies directly from the front lines, bringing the largest empires on earth to their knees before he even turned 30. Julius Caesar locked in his fate by crossing the Rubicon River, knowing his only options were absolute victory or brutal death. This diagram shows the burn the boats rule in action. When you cut off that plan B, you force yourself into a corner. By eliminating your escape route, surviving means you have absolutely no choice but to win. Keeping a fallback plan isn't a sign of strategic genius. It is an active, psychological bet on your own eventual failure. Greatness requires a daily, calculated campaign against your own desire for comfort. You decide the outcome of this psychological war every morning. You have to stop waiting for perfect conditions or a sudden burst of motivation. The only way forward is to cut off your toxic reliance on cheap dopamine today. Look directly at your biggest current goal. Identify the comfortable escape route you've secretly kept open in case things get hard, and mentally burn that boat right now. Treat your daily work like a lethal battle. Greatness is reserved strictly for those willing to walk straight through the fire.